This is Jordan Poyer, safety for the Buffalo Bills, and you are now listening to Cover One Buffalo Podcast. Let's go.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo Podcast. You are joining your hosts, Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn. Aaron, how we doing?
About to crack some jumbos, baby.
Woo!
7 and 2. Just like we drew it up. We all knew this was... We knew AJ Klein was an incredible football player. We knew Josh Allen was the best quarterback in the NFL. I'm ready to talk about it.
Is this what like other fans feel like? I don't understand. Like the things that I've watched with Peyton Manning and Kurt Warner, and like I just don't understand. This is not what I'm used to. It was unbelievable. The Bills have beat the 6-1 Seattle Seahawks to knock them to 6-2, 44-34. Yes, I said 44 points. Unbelievable outing. We're going to go through all of it. We are, of course, presented by our friends at Uncle Jumbo's. I enjoyed a healthy amount of it last evening. Aaron's enjoying some of it now. Come and check out our friends over at Uncle Jumbo's. Just an awesome game. This was so much fun. There was a little bit of stress, a little bit of tension. We had felt uneasy a few times, but this might be the best offensive performance I can remember. I don't know that I have one particular Drew Bledsoe game that stuck out to me. This was unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, there was a couple that Drew put up 400 yards of passing, I think, in his time here, but nothing that, in my opinion, was as dominant as what we saw from this Bills offense today. I tweeted it out somewhere in the fourth quarter that we saw an MVP quarterback today, and then the other quarterback was Russell Wilson.
No joke.
And it really, he played like an MVP today. He did everything right. And some of that is the defense, and we talked about that on the preview show that they had to take advantage of it, and boy, did they. Josh stepped up to the plate. We saw no sugar high Josh, and he took some hits, man. Like, we're talking about the broadcast was talking about how much Russell was getting hit, but Allen was right there, and he was taking hits and getting sacks, and the ball didn't come out. We didn't see him get crazy with it. He just did everything exactly how you need to do it in order to get in a shootout with the best offense in football and win that shootout and put up 44 points. I thought whoever the first to get to 30 would win. I didn't realize it would be the first to get to 40.
Well, and I mean, you talk about the offensive production that we just saw, where we saw 4 different offensive line combinations play at any given moment. We had 3 of our starting offensive linemen off to the side at one point. Thankfully, most guys were able to come back. But, Cody Ford even looked like he was jogging on the sideline. But good Lord, the fact that they did that, you combine that with the Seahawks very intelligently were bringing the house. When they saw that our offensive line was reshuffling and, then you have bad communication, you're not used to handing off blocks back and forth. They were smart and they were sending everything. And for about 2 drives there in the third quarter, I was going, oh man, we're just, this offensive line is going to give up the game, and we're playing great. They got it back together. They got it figured out. What an unbelievable performance when you take that into consideration of, being short guys in and out, losing players, and they still put up one of their best offensive performances. It really speaks to what an incredible game this was.
Yeah, that it did get a little bit hairy there in the third quarter when you saw Jamal Adams on the sideline yelling to Pete Carroll to keep sending that pressure line, keep going. And it was the only thing that really gave them any bit of life in this game was getting a few sacks on Josh, ending a couple of drives. Bork has punted twice in this game, I think.
Yeah, those 2 drives. Two drives.
And so it definitely worked. I do think it was a little bit of the, putting together different offensive lines in this game. But I think that speaks to the depth that we talked about in the preseason, and it doesn't always show up throughout the year. And obviously Winters has struggled and Botker struggled at different times, but that depth came in pretty handy here today to have a guy like Ty Nsekhe. And I don't know exactly how he played, but to have a guy of his caliber as depth when you need that, I don't think that it was a terrible thing to have the amount of offensive linemen they do, and all guys that they might not be world beaters, but can come in and play. That's a huge benefit to the Bills. And who knows if any of those injuries are going to linger here over the next week.
Yeah, unbelievable. Dan Cherry bringing up that the Bills are now 7-0 of every, not only Sunday game, every game that was played on the date that it was scheduled. Aaron, thank you. Very generous of you. We appreciate you very much.
That's a great first name too, Aaron.
And on top of that, you're right. Like some of those games where you're talking about, like the Sam Adams interception return game, that's the kind of game that you're talking about here, that, you know, the most fun experience there. And honestly, I always very quiet on the topic of fans in the stadium and things like that. So I don't bring that up a lot or go through it, because I'm not someone who goes to games in person. I've lived outside of Buffalo or Western New York for 20 years of my life. Today is a day where I feel bad. Today is a day that I would have loved to see just the celebration and party in Bills Stadium that this would have been here today. And it really would have been incredible to be able to see that. So I'm excited to find out, you know, if we can ever get back to that or figure out where that's at. But today was still a heck of a lot of fun. Twitter was awesome. The Cover One Slack channel was fantastic. People just going nuts, having fun together. So great game. And Aaron, let's dive right into the numbers and figure out exactly what happened here. So we're going to get to the defense. Don't worry. We're excited about talking about the defensive performance.
Well, before we get into like the box score numbers, can we talk for a second about toxic differential before we get into this? Because I've been tracking it in game here for a while, and the Bills ended the day, for my count, with 13.
Yes.
Toxic differential plays to 5, which is still a lot. Giving up 5.
Giving up 5 is one of the most we've given up. Yeah,
it's usually like 5 to 4 or whatever, you know, not a lot. So huge toxic differential play. This is the kind of game the NFL wants, is a high toxic differential game like this. But it came on both sides of the ball. It came with takeaways. It came with big plays from Josh Allen. It came with Stephon Diggs had a number of nice ones where he caught the ball and then put up an extra 10, 15 yards in yards after catch to gain some toxic differential. 7
different receivers had a toxic differential play. 7.
Yeah, and this is so my buddy Buffalo Wins immediately tweeted at me about 300-yard passers, and I reminded him that Russell Wilson also did. Wow, thank you, very generous.
Elijah, that's awesome.
Elijah,
man. Good
very
man.
Cool. I appreciate that. That Russell also passed for over 300 yards and lost, keeping 300 passing yards exactly at a coin toss, which it always ends up being. But toxic differential, man, again, we pound the table for it every week, but it showed up in a big way this week. And we talked about it in the preview show that they needed to get more possessions to stay ahead of this high power offense, and they did it, and they kept them at arm's length the whole game because of that toxic differential.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And we knew going in, we talked about it. We'll get to it on the defensive side of the ball against this kind of offense. But we talked about the fact that we know they don't have a good defense. We know that you have to take advantage of it. But I think everybody had that little bit of anxiety of like, oh, are we going to actually be able to take advantage of it? Seeing them, I mean, there was a point where it was 28 passes to 2 runs. I mean, that's not middling it. That's not, putting the toe in the water. That's saying, no, they're bad at pass defense, and we're going to shove the ball down your throat. Good luck stopping us. And they couldn't. And knowing that they couldn't, that was just unbelievable to be able to realize that they were going to keep putting their foot on the gas. And it was awesome to see.
Absolutely.
So, speaking of which, you're talking about a game here. Josh Allen just went 31 of 38 for 415 yards for 10.9 yards per attempt and 3 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. Shockingly, he did give up 7 sacks because the Seahawks blitzed 6 or 7 people on every other play. But to be able to still hit on 82% completion percentage for 415 yards, 3 touchdowns, and I'll say not only 0 interceptions, I don't recall any dropped interceptions or interceptable passes in the PFF vernacular. This might have been his best game that we've seen as a pro.
I would, without having that second look at it, I would have to say it's got to be. Even
maybe one of those Miami games before where he threw for 300 and ran for 100. But this was a more impressive performance.
Even in those Miami games, though, he had some of those, whatever you want to call them, interceptable balls, some of the
turnover-worthy plays.
Yeah, there really was none of that today. There might be a couple of the sacks when we look back at the all-22 that were on him for not manipulating the pocket or getting rid of the ball, but I'll take those sacks versus him spinning out crazy out of control, throwing the ball up in the air, leading to an interception or an interceptable ball. He didn't do that. He took care of the ball. And that's exactly what we need. We saw the +4 turnover differential there. You could have erased the toxic differential with a couple Josh Allen turnovers in this game, and that changes the outcome. And with some of those blitz plays, man, I know I'm not alone with Bills fans here thinking when I saw him standing up getting sacked that I just felt like that ball was about to come out or something bad was going to happen. It didn't end up happening here in this game, and kudos to him. So the yards aside, just playing clean football and not being the one that makes the mistakes to allow a team to come back, because it did get down to that one score game there in the third for a little bit and got hairy, but it wasn't because of Josh Allen.
Yeah, great comment here and appreciate the generosity today is awesome. The way that they now went to a 6-1 team that I think was right there 50-50 with Tampa Bay for the most commonly predicted NFC Super Bowl rep, and to take it to them like that, it was an unbelievable game. So what do you want to talk about statement games or the Bills haven't beat anybody any good? Nobody can argue this one. No one can argue this
against the best division in football.
Yeah. Yes. Now they took it to the Rams and the Seahawks that everybody else is struggling with. You can't take anything away from this. So fantastic game from Josh. I will say the rushing totals look bad because they didn't call any runs. So it looks like 19 carries for 34 yards. Almost all of that was when they were milking the clock in those last two drives and didn't need anything else. So called runs early in the game. Like I said, at one point it was legitimately 28-2. So they chose not to run the ball today. And when you throw the ball for 415 yards and you still put up, 449 total yards, it doesn't really matter. So I'm not terribly concerned with that. I don't think it's indicative of any problem. They simply were game plan specific. They knew that the Seahawks could not stop their passing game, and they took it to them. So it wasn't anything great. The running game didn't do anything awesome. Zach Moss got in for a touchdown when it mattered. They used a nice called run for Josh Allen on that quarterback sweep when it mattered to convert.
First down to seal the game.
Yeah, the first down to seal the game. They had 3 runs to get 10 yards, which is what they really needed. That's all you can ask for. They did enough, so I don't have any big takeaways from a run game standpoint.
I mean, from the run game specifically, no, but they also contributed here in the passing game along with everyone else on the team contributing. They caught all their targets. Singletary, 3 targets, 33 yards. Zach Moss, 2 targets, 30 yards. That's a nice contribution from your backfield in the passing game. Zach Moss even made that nice catch there, which I'm not sure they were intending to snap the ball. I think they were trying to draw Seahawks offsides.
I was surprised,
and they ran the play anyways. And it looked like Josh wasn't expecting it, but then Zach Moss made a nice toe drag swag from you see a guy like that runs as hard as he does to make a sideline catch like that. That's exciting. So they did some nice things and got out in the passing game. That one screen when the blitz was really hitting home for the Seahawks, and they dialed up that screen I think that was to Singletary one, or was that to Moss too? I don't remember now off the top of my head, but it was a beautiful play design, and they got a lot of yards after catch. So if you're going to be this modern style offense and have some of these games where your passing is totally outweighing the run game, those guys still have to contribute in these ways, and they did. And I'm really excited to also look at, because the blitz was a problem, was how was some of their pass blocking stuff. I think that'll be something interesting to take a look at this week, because if it wasn't good, I think teams will exploit it. But if there was something to work with there, that's good because they're still both 2 young backs.
Yeah, Moss had the one, and then Brown had the one right after. So, getting into the receivers, this was a game that really showed you how valuable it is to have Stephon Diggs and John Brown, because every time they tried to tilt the safety help one way or the other guy roasted his guy. So obviously it helps with just really poor cornerback play from the Seahawks, but Stephon Diggs, 9 catches for 118 yards on only 12 targets. John Brown, 8 for 99 on 11 targets. Gabe Davis with one of his better games since early in the season, 4 for 70 yards and a touchdown. Then you still had 3 for 39 with Cole Beasley. Didn't get a ton of work. I thought maybe he'd have a little bit stronger game. The 2 running backs together, like you said, 5 for 63, had that nice opening touchdown to Isaiah McKenzie and a touchdown to Tyler Kroft. So, 3 different receivers receiving touchdowns, and then separately another 17 for 217 yards from Stephon Diggs and John Brown. Just an awesome game. They should have done well. So this is not a good secondary. They needed to take advantage of it, but it's okay to celebrate it that they did and to give them credit for the fact that they took advantage of an opportunity for a team that wasn't ready to do it themselves. So this was a fantastic game, and I thought the entire receiving core looked great in my mind.
Yeah, that's a sneaky 99-yard game from John Brown, because I knew he had a good game, but I didn't think right after the game, I didn't think, oh yeah, John Brown had a 100-yard day receiving. A lot of it, that was that nice screenplay, beautiful third down call against screen, well executed. Love that. Love to see him be able to get the ball in space. But I think this, in my opinion, was Diggs' best game, because we saw some tough catches and we saw him also do some of the stuff yards after catch, which he had a couple big games early in the season too, but there wasn't a lot of after the catch stuff. He was just coming down with some really nice balls and coming on those hitch routes and not getting anything after the catch. I feel like almost every single one of his catches, he got something for Yak afterwards, which is fantastic. We're going to need that. But to the point you made, man, we talk about it a lot from a team perspective, from that like macro perspective of, you got to beat teams you should. You got to dominate teams you should. Same can kind of go to positionally. The wide receivers should have dominated these defensive backs, and Josh Allen should have been able to do whatever he wanted, and that's exactly what they did. So being able to exploit a weakness as severely as they did, I mean, they've played some other teams that have not done what the Bills did to this defensive backfield. Like, they've definitely given up yards and hemorrhaged points in yards this year, but not in the way the Bills were able to do it. They really took
a lot of garbage
further.
A lot of their numbers were inflated by garbage stats when Seattle had a big lead. And this was the first time that someone really, it is not only like the first, it is the first time a team has taken it to the Seahawks and jumped out on them. The Cardinals very much came back at the very end. They had a big lead on the Cardinals. So their only loss of the year was not something where they had them taking it to them. This was the most powerful victory they've had against them. Appreciate Clay. You guys were very generous today. Taylor, I love the last week. It was Gold Tornado that he audibled into. Gold Whip tonight. That Gold Audible, whatever it is, I am now a Gold Audible stan of whenever Josh says gold, you know it's going to be good. Before we end the offense here, I'm going to say, good on this offensive line for holding it together. It's really hard. That is the unit that needs the most gel and communication and being able to stay together. That losing 3 different guys for chunks of snaps in the same game and holding it together. And I say hold it together relatively. Josh did get sacked 7 times. That's not nothing. But to be able to not let the game get away from us when Seattle absolutely had a chance to get back into this, good on them. That is a fantastic job holding it together. And, between Feliciano, Deion Dawkins, and Darrell Williams kind of keep holding down the fort with this rotating group at guard. At some point here, I hope we get Morse back. I hope we get Feliciano back into guard and get this thing gelled for the final 5-6 game stretch run. And I'm hopeful. For anybody who didn't notice, Mitch Morse was a limited participant in practice on Friday, which means he's graduated to the final phase of the concussion protocol. I still hope they don't play him next week in Arizona, and I hope they give him the full 27 days off between games. But I thought the offensive line did pretty well considering how bad this could have got.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a little bit of silver lining here in these injuries. Well, they're never good to have this type of injury, whatever, opposite of luck, injury woes that we're having here. You're coming up on the bye. Hopefully you can get some of these guys healthy, but I don't think this is going to be the last time we face this type of adversity along the offensive line here going in towards the playoffs in this last stretch. So getting some reps for some of these younger guys, your Bates, your Bakers, even getting Secchi some reps here today. We haven't seen him.
First time we've seen him, really.
I think that's a good thing, especially in a game where you won. And it wasn't like you were just being defeated and had to throw some guys out there. You won this game and still were able to get some development for some guys that you might need in a pinch here going forward at some point this year. So a little bit of silver lining kind of into that a little bit. But yeah, I agree on the Morse thing. I'm totally fine if they held him out a week. Really, whoever. I think that goes for everyone going into this Arizona game. I obviously want to win it, but we talked about it last week. You got to split these 2 years before the bye. Now we're playing with house money, guys.
Already 7-2 is house money. This is I don't care. They could sit everybody next week, and I won't be upset. Get into this bye, get healthy, and go on the stretch run. You bank 7 wins in the first 9 games. I'm open to any strategy to be able to get to that point.
Absolutely. You're playing with house money now. Get to this bye, and we keep talking about it. Get a nice run built after the bye to head into the postseason with. But the Bills don't beat anyone. The Bills don't beat anybody with a good record. That monkey's off their back now. And so you've got these 7 wins. Take advantage of it. Get healthy, and let's do something special.
Yeah, we'll get to the coaching here in a minute as we flip over to the defensive side of the game. Just want to say a quick thank you. Our friends over at T-Shirt University helping us out, giving away gift cards for anybody who gives us a rating or a review. We're going to pick out a winner each week. Our man Nick Trusso with the review on iTunes. Appreciate you, Nick. Check out, hook up with us in DMs, and we will get you get your address to send you the gift card. Our friends over at tshirtuniversity.com giving out gift cards to be able to give us some really nice gear. Aaron and I went and visited them. Both came home with some goodies. So picked up some nice stuff from them, and make sure you're checking them out at tshirtuniversity.com. And if you're enjoying this, give us a rating, give us a review, give us a like wherever you're listening to it. Tell somebody about the show. It really helps us out. A lot of people ask about what they can do. That's the easiest way. Give a recommendation. Tell somebody about what the show is doing and that you enjoy listening to it. And we'll continue to bring you guys the best coverage we can. All right. On to this defensive side of the ball. First, I want to talk about the defensive coaching. This was a significant shift. We have been a bend but don't break, keep everything in front of us, don't give up big plays. And they really threw the kitchen sink at them today with a ton of blitzes right off the first play of the game. I'm proud of McDermott that he beat a Super Bowl coach, beat one of those top coaches that people ask about, got a win against a playoff caliber top end team, just some of those kind of monkeys off the back. But I also love that he and Frazier dialed up an aggressive defensive performance when you knew that anytime you could get a possession back for your offense, they were going to capitalize and take advantage of it. So you opened up with that ridiculous 13-5 toxic differential. I think that some of it was kind of the snowball effect when things got rolling here, but they were aggressive because they knew anytime you could steal a possession, Josh and that offense were going to take advantage of it. And I love that aggressive approach today.
Yeah, and some of the stuff that doesn't show up in the toxic differential is the 3 and out, right out the gates for Seattle, where the Bills score on the first possession. The Bills probably have not started a game better in the Sean McDermott era than the way they scored, coming out dominating, putting points on the board quick, and then coming out getting a 3 and out, getting your offense the ball back. Like that to me was a statement in itself without getting a turnover or anything like that. So I think the aggressive play was a great game plan here. It could have backfired, but the way the offense was playing, I felt like you could have won a shootout either way. So this type of game in a shootout like this, having that high risk, high reward defense, I think is totally worth it. And we saw Seattle get into it, and I think a little too late. I think they took sort of that Bills game plan a little late. I think they sort of did what the Bills did with KC, which was we're going to drop a bunch of people back in coverage. But then the Bills said, hey, we're not scared to do that. We'll play that game with you guys. The Bills didn't really do that. We didn't see them just dropping back everybody into coverage, which is some of what we anticipated, that dare them to run the ball on us. We got aggressive and said, if you're going to throw the ball, you better throw it quick, and you better throw it where it needs to be. Now, granted, it worked. It got Russ off his spots, but he also had a bit of a bad day, even when there wasn't pressure.
It wasn't his best game.
He was not playing his best game. And what's crazy is he didn't play his best game and still put up ridiculous numbers.
Yeah, 390 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, we're going to sit here all week and talk about how good this defense looked, and they still scored over 30 points and put up huge numbers. Yeah. And that's going to be a little bit of a mind – I don't have a better word than the F word, but a mind trip to people when they watch the All-22, because it felt like a really good defensive performance, but they still put up. I mean, if the Bills put up the type of offensive performance that the Seahawks put up with, I'm praising our offense, you know?
Oh, yeah. And Jason makes a great point here that I think that some of that was cumulative on Russ, that Fox put it up towards the end of the game, the most hits
16.
any quarterback has taken all season. Daniel Jones, Kyle Allen, Gardner Minshew, some quarterbacks with some terrible offensive lines. The Bills hit Russell Wilson more than any quarterback has been hit all season.
And then after that stat, he still got hit like 3 or 4 more times.
What that total number ends up being, we'll see when the final numbers come out. But it wasn't just the defensive line. The defensive line had a good game. You had quarterback hits from Mario Addison plus a sack, a QB hit from Justin Zimmer, a sack, and 2 quarterback hits from Jerry Hughes plus the strip sack on the one, a quarterback hit from Trent Murphy. But the linebackers were crazy today. AJ Klein and Tremaine Edmonds had their best linebacking game of the season. AJ Klein, who we have just mocked mercilessly.
My favorite player on the team.
Obviously. He's been downright bad. There is nothing you can say today. The opening play, we joked about it, that he was one-on-one with Tyler Lockett, and thank God Russ hit AJ Klein in the back. Otherwise, he would have been toasted for a touchdown, but he did. He did technically as a pass breakup. The rest of the game, he was great on blitzes. He came hard. He went through a running back to pull Russell Wilson down for 1 sack, and the other one was your prototypical all-time highlight blindside hit that the quarterback just didn't see coming, where he hits him, knocks the ball out, and gets the strip, sack, fumble, recovery all at once. So good on AJ Klein for a guy who is as beleaguered as could possibly be to come away with the game with a tackle for a loss, 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, a fumble forced, and a fumble recovery. Tremaine Edmonds all over the field, easily his best game of the year. For as bad as these linebackers have been, I don't know if we're going to see this kind of aggression and play the rest of the season. This was the best linebacking game we played all year, and our best linebacker wasn't even playing.
Yeah, I loved what we saw out of him. I really like the way Klein responded, because there was a lot of talk about him here this week, bringing in Darren Lee, Delshon Phillips getting back healthy. Even in the pregame, I was listening to a bunch of pregame radio, and they were talking about how they might have to get Darren Lee in real fast here and see what he looks like and get Delshon going, because Klein's so bad that there's no way it can be worse. I don't believe that. I think it definitely can be worse. It can always get worse. But we saw that he can actually be serviceable. And he still had some plays that I'm sure he wants back. There was one run play particularly where I think his problem in the run game sometimes is not even that he's taking the wrong angle or hitting the wrong hole. He did the right things, but he's just not athletic enough to get out to the edge, right, and to chase down a running back. So it looked really bad. And then obviously the Lockett play, I'm sure he would want back if that ball was more a little on target than in his back. So there's still stuff for him.
Or that any other athletic linebacker would have turned around and intercepted the ball.
Sure, for sure. But I thought he did a number of nice things, made the flash plays when it was needed. I think the coaching staff, as much as the fans don't like it, I think they trust him enough, even with Darren Lee here, with Delshon Phillips getting healthy. I think those are reserve roles. Those are not guys that they brought in to replace AJ Klein. Those are guys that are brought in that if AJ has a really bad game, then maybe we'll see somebody come in. But I think the plan is to continue to roll with AJ here going forward. And he probably put enough on tape here to give them reason to continue rolling with him going forward. But super happy for Tremaine. He needed this. He looked fully healthy for the first time. He was flying around. Yes. He could have got home a number more times. He got tripped up on some of those A-gap blitzes a couple times where he was coming with a full head of steam. He had some really nice plays in coverage. So I'm hoping that is a sign that he's returning to a full health here, because he looked like a different player than he had the first half of the season so far. So if we can get a full healthy second half from Tremaine, I'm really interested to see his development.
Yeah, and Lone Wolf's right here. Don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting this from AJ Klein anymore, but I will say, if they can get it to where now we have a fast, healthy Tremaine Edmonds, we get him through the Arizona game, get them back. Matt Milano's now going to miss today, the Arizona game, the bye week, and the Chargers game minimum. If we get him back healthy for the final 5-game stretch, and then we have a chance to use AJ Klein, he's not Lorenzo Alexander, so don't misconstrue me here, but as kind of an aggressive, movable piece is that third linebacker.
20% of snaps or less.
Yeah, back to 20% of snaps and some mixed in blitzes. Yes. Maybe he can be a bit more functional and we can not use him in coverage because we're allowing him to blitz and go after the quarterback and be playing downhill and forward. Maybe that can be at least a way to mitigate some of his liabilities and to gain some value back from him being on the team. So obviously we haven't seen a ton of that so far, but that's at least a good way to go about it.
That's hard when you're in the season, and obviously the Milano injury has been super frustrating for everyone, him, the team, us fans. It's very frustrating. The Bills never intended AJ Klein to be a guy that would get 90+% of snaps every single week. That was not the intention when they signed him. The intention was they would be a 20% or less as they shifted more towards base nickel. The whole NFL is going that way anyway, that you wouldn't see him on the field very much and that he could play some special teams and be this type of limited contributor. You're going to see some of the more flaws in a guy like that's game when he's on the field 90% of snaps versus 20 or less percent of snaps. I think you can hide some of it in the 20. So it's frustrating, but I still think the options behind that can be worse. I don't know if they are or not. So we've got to hope that Klein, at least, even if he doesn't play the level he did today, I agree, we're not going to crown this guy. We're mostly just joking and being hyperbolic.
Yeah, I've been incredibly critical of him.
But if he can play somewhere in between where we saw today and the bottom, that we've seen from him and just get by until hopefully Matt Milano gets healthy, that's going to be good enough for me. Because, again, I don't know that anyone else comes in and markedly improves that linebacking core at this point.
Yeah, it just don't be an obvious liability that they pick on. That's all we need. Just help us get through these 2 games, get Milano and Edmonds back for that 5-game run to end the year, and I'll be happy. So moving into the secondary, obviously DK Metcalf is a freak of nature. Like I haven't watched a ton of Seahawks games start to finish. They've been on, prime time plenty of times, so I've seen games there. Like the study of him coming into the game, I was petrified. And then the couple of plays where, like little ones, like the play where he kind of turned back in bounds and trucked Trey White as both of them were going out of bounds. And even that goal line touchdown where Dane Jackson was in good position and was there, and just people just bounce off of him. He is just a granite pillar at a wide receiver. It's unbelievable. So I actually thought the secondary did pretty well. Besides the one play they lost David Moore in coverage, I thought that they did about as well as you could expect. A lot of that was some screens and some running back and tight end stuff over the middle as they were trying to keep plays in front of them. They kept Tyler Lockett to 4 catches for 40 yards. I thought that the secondary did decently, and it was interesting that they used the linebackers to blitz more than the secondary. We saw some D. Marlowe blitzes, a nice one that Micah Hyde caused the one cleanup sack that I think that Tremaine Edmonds had cleaned up. So I thought the secondary played well.
Yeah, Karen had a blitz off the edge where somebody else cleaned up.
Yeah, so it was a good game, which is hard when you're saying that we gave up 390 passing yards, but they played well. I thought they actually did play pretty well.
They played pretty well. Tyler Lockett was fairly limited considering what type of receiver he is. It almost felt like one of those, to go to sort of a basketball analogy, is when, let LeBron get his and DK Metcalf. And I don't think they were trying to let him get his, but when you have 2 really good wide receivers, you kind of got to take one away. You can't let both of them eat. You can't let all the guys cook. So
when you saw it on that one Will Dissly play, that was because both Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf were in bracket coverage, and that there was just a bunch of open spots in the zone. When you do that, that's the risk. Like people are like, why don't you double cover them both? The other guys are still NFL players.
Yes, and there's only so many. You have equal amount of players on both sides of the field, and if you double cover both, you're going to have guys open. So that's part of it too. I thought for the most part they kept the explosive plays down. That one behind the coverage, that's such a weird play. That was a tough one. But for the most part, you're looking at a Seahawks offense that relies heavily on the passing game and has scored at a faster clip than I think any team in the league when it comes down to time to score in their possessions. And for most of the day, they limited the explosive plays and really made this Seahawks offense labor to get points. We saw them go for 4th and 1
drives, but other than the one bomb to David Moore, all of them were laborious drives.
Yeah, and struggling in the red zone at times to get points and having to be on third down and create multiple conversions to get scoring drives sustained. And that's not something that I saw really on film when we looked at the Seahawks. So, yes, they gave up a lot of yards. Yes, there's probably some plays they all on the defensive backs want back. I'm sure that DPI on Trey was pretty blatant, but how do you guard DK Metcalf like that? Levi made a great play on that where he got his head turned around and got his hand on a ball that could have easily been a touchdown, which we've seen the Seahawks get in on a number of times. A guy I'd like to talk about just for a second who has not been a liability here the past 3, almost 4 weeks now is Taron Johnson. Has responded really well to what if he was benched for Cam Lewis or whatever it was when Cam got hurt. He was benched, wasn't in with the starting defense, and since then he's responded really well. And I think the coaching staff loves guys that respond to that type of adversity and come out. And there was a number of times where I saw Taron matched up with Tyler Lockett and did a pretty good job. So I'm interested to see that on the All-22 here too. And then you throw Dane Jackson in there and he comes in and makes a nice tackle on DK Metcalf. I love having him on the bench. Hope to get Cam Lewis back again. If we can get this whole secondary healthy, I really like the secondary and the depth of the secondary here heading into the final stretch of the season. I really like the things they're doing, and you're starting to see them play better as a whole unit.
Yeah, and I appreciate our guys, Chris and Drew, Rock Power Report in here checking us out. It's something that Levi Wallace also played really well. I don't remember him giving up anything significant. So when you're talking about Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, that's a serious win there. So overall, I thought that they played well. I like the use of Saran Neal and what I've coined the big dime when they took AJ Klein off and brought him in as a third safety along with keeping Taron Johnson on the field or Dean Marlowe in some of those. That was kind of their answer to how to be able to respond there. So I like the fact that they're almost using Saran Neal like a movable linebacker piece on third down. So again, that was all some pretty significant adjustments that they were showing on defense, and really excited to see what they do. So moving into some of our friends over at Uncle Jumbo's, and we're looking at the responsible play of the game. There were some different options we had here today. What was the one that stuck out to you?
Yeah, because of the way this game went, I think there's probably some audible options that you can see that Josh went into, but I'm going to go with the timeout right before that onside kick, because I'm not sure that even if the Seahawks get that onside kick, I don't know how much of a game it still is, but the Bills took the timeout that they had available, made sure they got a look at what the Seahawks wanted to do for that onside kick, because their kicker has some of those weird drop kick onside kicks.
Well, and it was their punter that does it, so it's not even just a kicker. He does weird, goofy stuff with it.
Yeah, and the ball moves really funny. So they looked at it, and they knew what they were coming with, and they took a smart timeout and got to see a look at the play because the Seahawks ran it, and got a look at what they wanted to do and line up, and to make sure that there is no slip up in that scenario, because the last thing you want to do is, this game was already down to a 1-score game at one point in the third quarter. The last thing you want to do is give this team any bit of life, because Russ did show that even though you had the game in hand, he can score on 165-yard play. So you don't want to give them the ball back. So I thought that was a responsible use of timeouts and time. And I think that some of Sean McDermott's time and use will be questioned here throughout the week from people that are nitpicking, but I don't think that was one of them.
Yeah, and so I love that call. I thought, and McDermott's always good about using those, whether it's a defensive matchup you see at the end of the half or whatever. I'm going to go with the gold whip. I love seeing that Josh called it out, and that's 2 weeks in a row, the gold tornado, gold whip. Anytime Josh says gold, know the good things are coming. But to see that, to check into that audible, get the ball out to Smoke Brown on a play where it could have turned into a field goal there, and it could have really slowed down the momentum, to be able to answer like that and to be able to pick it out. That's a couple weeks in a row that Josh is processing what the other team is doing, picking out how to be able to take advantage of it, and then going along there. So our friends over at Uncle Jumbo's want you to enjoy their wonderful Uncle Jumbo's products responsibly. There you go. Our responsible plays of the game, that timeout going into the onside kick, and then the gold whip on the audible, both really responsible decisions made there. Our other sponsor of the game here are our friends over at West Her. And for West Her Automotive, you're looking for a vehicle, make sure you're checking them out. West Her Automotive, 23 dealerships in the Western New York area, the biggest dealership group in New York State, actually. There were a lot of choices here, Aaron. There was a whole lot. And it was interesting as we were doing our prep going into the show, we both picked the same one. I'll let you lead off with this one.
Yeah, and it wasn't the prettiest drive of the day. It wasn't the best actual offensive drive of the game, but it was the Bills are up. It's 27-20, so they finally it's that third quarter woes.
And it just went touchdown, punt, field goal by the Seahawks. So they scored a touchdown, got a quick 3-and-out, got a field goal, and everybody was in that, oh, crap, we just let them pull within 7.
Yes, we need points. We need to get going. And the offense responds. And it was a 9-play, 82-yard, 5-minute and 29-second drive. But the thing that I liked best about this drive was they were facing adversity within the game. Right. There's a lot of pressure on your offense to score in this situation where you're down by 7 to a high potent offense. Everyone in that organization's feeling that in the moment that this is on the offense's back to keep this a game at arm's length. The Seahawks are still bringing some of this aggressive style defense that they were doing. There was a number of sacks. There was a number of penalties. They kept continuing to go backwards. I tweeted at the time, it felt like, again, laborious for the Bills to move the ball forward throughout this drive. I believe this is the same drive where they had the big John Brown play here.
Both screens, both of the awesome screens everybody loves. That was my favorite part.
Yeah, and they came in big spots, kept the ball moving, and those big chunk plays, man, again, it comes back to toxic differential for me is when things are not going well, if you can find ways to get big chunk plays, it erases some of those problems that you have, whether it be penalties, sacks, anything like that. You can make up for it with the big chunk plays. And they did. And then they capped it off with a touchdown and showed to me sort of the resiliency of the team facing adversity and responding well to that. And then, you have these opportunities to beat a really good team. In order to do that, you have to keep them at an arm's length. And this team responded and did that when they had to. So to me, again, wasn't the prettiest drive of the day, but they did what they had to do. And that to me was the difference in winning this game, that drive.
Absolutely. I love the fact that it was at the peak of the Seahawks blitzes getting home and of the danger of, oh my gosh, is the offensive line going to be able to adjust enough? Are we going to be able to make this work? And the fact that they opened it up with that beautiful screenplay to Zach Moss that was literally like picture perfect, where you had the two offensive linemen running untethered just down the field and Moss kind of weaving behind them. They did get home on a couple more. They had some more of those issues. They had a sack. They had a false start. And then you come back. That's where Josh also picks up on it, where it was, 3rd and 16. That John Brown screen was on 3rd and 16 for Gold Whip that, he picked it out, identified where it was, knew they were bringing that pressure again, went with the audible and got them down the field. So those adjustments where, Seattle doesn't have a good secondary there, but they still have talented players. You're still talking about Jamal Adams and Carlos Dunlap and Bobby Wagner and guys who could make plays, and they were dialing it up and getting home on those. And the fact that they still put that together to completely take away any momentum and quickly answer with that touchdown. And it went into a 5-play run here where in 5 consecutive plays, it went touchdown, sack, interception, touchdown. That's one of the most incredible series of events I can remember as a Bills fan. And it was at that point where they went up 41-20 deep in the fourth quarter, where real pandemonium went. And that was the moment where I would have loved to have seen the crowd in the stadium be able to see it. But a 5-play run like that is pretty incredible.
Absolutely. And you said it, that even though it looked like the Bills were out there bullying the Seahawks, and they were, and that the Seahawks have struggled in terms of like yardage and giving up points, they've also been one of the teams that are most prone to taking the ball over and getting toxic plays on defense. They are aggressive and they sell out, but they make plays and they get their team the ball back. We didn't see it today. We didn't see it from Josh Allen putting the ball on the ground, putting the ball in the air. And you said probably his first game of the year where we didn't see any interceptable ball, however PFF wants to
turnover worthy. Yeah, turnover worthy plays. He didn't have any turnover worthy plays. We didn't see that.
And from a very aggressive defense that takes the ball away. So kudos to him. And again, when that drive got a little bit hairy, they just kind of hung in there and did all the right things and put some points on the board. And yeah, man, I was right there with you when the Bills went up like that. I was just looking outside at how nice it was at my house today here in Western New York. And just all I could think about is how cool would it be? Damn it, 2020 for ruining the opportunity to be out there
that from us.
What a beautiful day this would have been, just cheering with 70,000 of my friends and family of Bills Mafia. A great win, probably one of the bigger wins. This has got to be up there with the Atlanta Falcons one a few years ago, where the Bills made a big statement against a really good team.
Yeah, that Steelers win to confirm the playoffs on Sunday Night Football last year. I mean, it's right up there, up there. As we're kind of getting down the stretch here, this was a really meaningful game for.
Whatever
we did.
I'll do it.
If that's what we need to do to jinx it,
I will pick against the Bills every week if this is what it takes.
Hey, and if all we have to do is find the powers of us being wrong, I'm all.
I'm wrong all the time. Just add to it.
So it's exciting to be able to take a look at it. And I will say, if you look at my picks on Tally site, I did end up changing my mind and pick the Bills to win and to cover. So I did end up changing after the show, but I'll take the credit for the bad call on the show. It's fantastic. I'm really happy for the coaching staff for today. I love the fact of how aggressive Dable was in adjusting with the offensive line getting hurt, dialing up the blitzes, picking out different ways to do it. I loved how aggressive the defense was. I like how McDermott approached this game and kind of got the monkey off his back for beating, a Super Bowl ring wearing coach and the number one team in the NFC. And I think those things start to matter, and that's a lot of momentum going forward. That confidence is a real thing. And when you talk about momentum, and people always argue about whether it's real or not, I always argue momentum isn't real in the sense of this abstract third party element that's just in the air and making things happen. Momentum is very, very real when you go into the minds of the people involved in an event with their confidence or their doubt. And when they feel like good things are going to happen and they're playing with that momentum and that confidence, they continue to do that. And when you have that mindset of, oh no, here we go again, everybody knows how those things can unravel. Games like this matter, that they went out there, everybody contributed. Offense, defense, special teams all contributed to this win to make positive plays. And now you're going to be able to go on the road confident to play a really, really good Arizona team that they're going to be excited to go play now. And they're not going to be nervous about that. And to get a win against a team like this with everybody watching was huge for their confidence going forward, knowing that they're dinged up, knowing that there's 16 guys on the injury list and that they got a chance to get them all back. This is a huge game for the psyche of that locker room and that coaching staff. And I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit here, and I tweeted it out this week that the Bills needed to be a team that they're not supposed to be. And regardless of what I know a lot of fans kind of got on me about that and saying like, well, I think they're going to win. But I was more talking about the national idea, who the people thought that these two teams were, because the Bills were really, the offense was slipping for 4 games. The defense still hadn't played great, even though they had a good game against the Jets. They had a number of good moments in games. But this team really didn't look like a team that on paper and in their last 4 performances could go toe-to-toe with what everyone else perceived as a Super Bowl contender. And I bought into some of that a little bit. And kudos to the people that truly saw that this was going to be a game that favored the Bills. But I think the majority of people didn't believe that. Vegas didn't quite believe that. They thought it'd be close. But for the Bills to go in and beat a team that they aren't supposed to beat is huge, because you saw that narrative developing within the Buffalo media and within fans of Sean McDermott hasn't beat so many teams with winning records. He hasn't beat anybody that are playoff caliber teams or anything like that. So I was starting to fight people on Twitter that, people are like, oh, great, we're going to get to the playoffs, but we can't beat playoff caliber teams. So what does it matter? Well, now you have that, right? That excuse isn't built in anymore, because Seattle's going to go on to the playoffs. They are a playoff caliber team. They're going to go on to the playoffs. They're probably going to be dangerous.
Yeah,
into the
Chris
playoffs.
here saying we don't want to see them again. If it's in the Super Bowl, I'll take it.
Yeah, I would love to see them in the Super Bowl again, or the Rams, or whoever we're going to play. But I think all those monkeys being off the back are great. Those narratives don't exist anymore. And I agree with you that it does build confidence within the building. And you've seen some of these young guys having to play in these spots which builds confidence within your depth, which as we get here to this last stretch of the season is going to matter. We're not going to, the injury bug's not just going to go away. Guys are going to have to play. So building confidence across your roster is nothing but a positive thing, because there's going to be some tough battles as we continue throughout this season and into the playoffs.
We'll go through a couple quick questions here before we wrap up. Our man Nick Lowe is asking, is the Cards a better or worse matchup for us than the Hawks? I'll say the Cardinals offense isn't quite as good as Seattle's offense, and the Cardinals defense isn't quite as bad as the Seahawks defense. So they're tough. They're a really good offense. Kyler Murray is a really dangerous weapon. DeAndre Hopkins is obviously a really strong, technician at wide receiver. They don't have the crazy athlete guys like DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett have. So I feel okay that our scheme can manage that a little bit better, but
a little bit better run game.
Yes, they are better. Although I'm not sure. I think Kenyon Drake was out today, so we'll have to see if he's ready for next week. But Chase Edmonds is still good, and Eno Benjamin is actually a player I watched at the Senior Bowl and liked a lot. So I'm going to say it's a little bit better matchup, but they're still really good, and it's on the road. I expect it to be probably a pick 'em, or the Cardinals to be a slight favorite. And I would say that, on the road against a good team with a good quarterback, we're not great against athletic quarterbacks. I think that could be a challenge, and I expect it to be a difficult game.
I do think there's going to be some opportunities. Well, I love Kyler Murray and respect the crap out of him, and he is going to be one of these guys. Like we saw Russ today with that crazy getting out of the pocket and hitting on a 65-yarder. Kyler Murray is a tough guy. Even though he's a little guy, he's tough to bring down. He gets lost in the pocket. He's super athletic, annoyingly good at getting like 8-10 yard scrambles and slide. Just a very difficult matchup. But I do think there's going to be some things that Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott are going to be able to do schematically to confuse him. He's still a young quarterback. He hasn't seen a lot of things. They do a lot of stuff pre and post snap that confuse some of these younger quarterbacks. I think they'll be able to find some success there. But definitely going to be a unique matchup. But again, we're playing with house money, so I don't even care.
A good question here. We didn't give a lot of love to the special team specifically that Darth Ray brought up. So obviously,
that's a heck of a game.
Yeah, with a fantastic return from Andre Roberts, opened up with a 60-yarder to start it. Tyler Bass's only miss was a 61-yarder. He obviously tried to overkick it, and it went pretty far wide right. But great everything other than that. 5 for 5 on extra points, 3 for 4 on the other field goals, so made all the other 3. So he went 8 for 9, and the one miss was a 61-yarder. That's a pretty darn good game.
No one thought he was going to hit the 61-yarder.
No, it would have been awesome, but no big deal. Again, a great return to average 40 yards for the 2 returns for Andre Roberts. Corey Bojorquez has actually had a pretty nice game. I give kudos to David Moore, the punt returner for the Seahawks. Smart. He totally okey-doked our freaking Gunners. Corey Bojorquez bounced that 54-yard punt at the 5-yard line.
Yeah, it was like at the 3-yard line or something.
And it was like right up in the air, and an easy one that he either could have gone down and caught live in the air or off the bounce. And he faked them out like it was coming up to the 12-yard line, and they both stopped short. So good on him, but that wasn't on Bojorquez. That was actually a great punt and should not have been a touchback, and would have been 254, an average of 53.5 with no touchbacks, and both inside the 20. So could have been really exciting for him. So I'd say a really solid above average game from a special team standpoint for what it could have been.
I think the sneakiest thing, well, one, I think Andre Roberts is an all-pro returner.
Fantastic. He's playing fantastic.
Yeah, he's having a fantastic season. But two sneaky thing is that Bojorquez seems to have fixed whatever the issues were with the hold, whether it was the snapping or his holding. But that's something that we haven't seen. We haven't talked about that now in, a month of football and kicks. So hopefully that's well behind us because, again, an important role of special teams that he's done well with.
Jason here asking, does this game tell you the Bills' offense is back or that Seattle's defense is worse than the Patriots and Jets?
Both can be true.
I think so, too.
All the things. I don't know that the Bills offense has the ability to sustain that level of play against the Steelers when they come out to play them, but I think they can do it against a few teams. And I feel confident that when needed, if it's really going to be needed, when everybody's healthy, John Brown being back is a big part, that they can do some of these things that we saw today. I don't know that they could do it at the level we saw today, but so I think both.
At Lone Wolf asking here, do we re-sign Roberts next year? I expect with the contract situation for next year and how loose the cap or how tight the cap will be for every other team, I expect guys like Andre Roberts and Isaiah McKenzie to be brought back on minimum contracts. I don't expect them to get huge contract offers from other teams. I think a lot of players are going to take 1 year veteran minimum deals just to kind of get the bonus that they can, where you count the minimum against the cap, but they get a little extra money and then roll into 2022 to try to get their contract or money back. I also expect the Bills to try to draft a guy who is Andre Roberts plus Isaiah McKenzie combined, but re-signing them before the draft gives you that insurance. So if we re-sign Andre Roberts for a veteran minimum deal, which I don't expect a guy his age and a special teams guy to get way more than that. Yes, I'd be on board with that. Giving him any material amount of money, I'd prefer not to.
I agree.
So going into it here, any final thoughts, Aaron? This is a really fun game to watch. I don't even have a ton of criticism or critical thoughts. You're obviously thinking about hoping Trey White's ankle didn't look too bad. Obviously the adrenaline let him tape it up and need to go back out there if he could. Hopefully that's nothing big. Hopefully we see the offensive linemen check out okay. But really, I just want one more game with no more injuries, get us into the bye and help us go out on that run.
Yeah, no, definitely. I want everybody to enjoy this win. This was a huge one for the organization, for Sean McDermott to get all these monkeys out there. Thank you very much, Dan. Check out Dan's content as well. I'm sure you all do already. I'm really happy. I hope we enjoy this win. Arizona's going to be tough. I know right now people are saying they're losing to Miami, but it is a week-to-week league, so I'm going to look forward to watching the rest of that game. I am a little worried about Miami, but that's something that we have a few weeks here to worry about. But if the Bills can go and put this game away against the Cardinals going into the bye, I'm not super worried about things at all. I don't have a lot of worries in my life at all, to be honest with you. The Bills have put themselves in a really good position right now, beating both the NFC West teams, having a really good conference record, really good division record. I feel really good about the way things are trending. Again, now my biggest worry is getting guys healthy and coming out of this next game healthy and then going in through the bye and really putting together a nice run. And that's really where my brain's focused on. But I'm going to enjoy this one for 24 hours. Lots of gifts, lots of dunking on people, lots of trash talking. So come find me on Twitter at Aaron Quinn 716 because I would like retweets on some of these dunks I'm about to distribute here throughout the week.
I like it. I'm going to be there supporting and retweeting all of it. Make sure you check it out. Man, Dan, he's got an awesome YouTube channel and on the Believe podcast with Aaron Williams as well. They're throwing out good stuff all the time. I'm relieved as much as anything. Like, I'm excited. I feel good, but I'm relieved to be able to see that, hey, this is real. It's not crumbling and falling apart. And that I know I keep doing I think the fact that the injuries
point out the rich mahogany background.
Yeah. I just want to, just bring attention to the beautiful rich mahogany. The fact that that these injuries are survivable, like you said, actually giving us an opportunity for some good live reps for other guys and that we get the guys back. I really feel good about it. So the fact that we hit over the halfway point here, 7-2, they can't take those 7 wins away no matter what. I feel really good about the division. I feel really good about the playoffs. And now all that I care about, honestly, is surviving these last 7 games and just getting through it healthy and getting ready for that final stretch run. There's going to be tough games. Playing Pittsburgh is going to be tough. Playing, on the road in San Francisco is going to be tough. The Chargers look like an up-and-coming team with a young quarterback. There's going to be tough games. All I care about is staying healthy and getting ready for that stretch run because for the first time in 20 years, I know my team is making the playoffs. I know my team is going to be hosting a home playoff game and ready to do that. And now being able to play that positioning, what gets us the most ready for it is a new experience that I'm ready for.
Absolutely. And I agree here. The 1 of 11 stakes seem to be working.
That's right. I just do my part. I just got to do my part. That's
science is. I mean, you can't argue with math and science, and it's adding up that you need to keep eating steaks, my man.
Clearly, ribeyes are for Saturday. That's just the way it works. So thank you very much. You guys can check out Aaron's work over Aaron Quinn 716. You guys can find me at Greg Tompsett, GregTompsett. Thank you to Uncle Jumbo's. Thank you to West Her. Thank you for everybody in the chat here. You have been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.